Snails make excellent pets. Yes, you heard that correctly. Snails make excellent pets. They're quiet, don't take much labor, their home is simple to set up, and they're fascinating creatures to observe. Another advantage of keeping snails as pets is that they are simple to feed. If you're wondering what snails eat, we've got the answer, as well as tons of other intriguing snail facts, so sit back, relax, and keep watching. Snails eat a variety of things, depending on their species and where they live. Despite the fact that there are thousands of distinct snail species worldwide, they may be divided into three groups: land snails, freshwater snails, and saltwater snails. Most snails are herbivores, meaning they solely eat plant things such as leaves, vegetables, fruit, and so on, whether they dwell on land or in the water. Snails can be omnivorous, meaning they eat both plant and animal matter. Snails that only consume meat are known as carnivores. Land snails are the most frequent type of snail maintained as a pet, therefore we'll focus on them in this video. Some snails will consume almost anything in their immediate vicinity, while others will go out of their way to find items they enjoy. Green leaves, living or dead plants, fruits, vegetables, mushrooms, tree bark, and stems are all common foods for snails. Snails will even eat eggshells they discover in the wild in order to benefit from the high calcium content. Snails are gastropods that belong to the Mollusca phylum. While there are many various sorts of snails that come in a variety of shapes, colors, and sizes, they all have a shell and a foot that they use to move around. Snails eat via a tongue-like organ called a radula. Snails use the radula's thousands of small teeth to scrape off plant matter and consume prey. Snails are high in calcium, despite the fact that they consume at the bottom of the food chain. This calcium from the snail's shell is transmitted up the food chain to help animals that eat snails create shells and embryos, such as mice, shrews, squirrels, toads, turtles, and birds. If you've got a new pet snail in a terrarium or another comparable environment, you'll need to give food and water for it. The simplest method to figure out what to feed a snail is to put a variety of foods in its habitat and see what it loves. Lettuce, cabbage, apples, and cucumbers are a good place to start. It's a good idea to keep the food in a small dish in the cage, as this will make cleaning the habitat easier. Other ideal foods for a pet snail include spinach, artichoke, peas, kale, pears, peaches, plums, strawberries, among others. Snails have an intriguing trait is that if they aren't provided a range of foods to consume, they can become bored. This means that your snail's diet should not be limited to just one or two foods. Keeping your snail friend satisfied requires variety. Snails require calcium in their food to maintain the health of their shells. A snail's shell can thin out and crack if it doesn't acquire enough calcium. You may make sure your snail gets adequate calcium by giving it ground eggshells, natural chalk, cuttlebone, or calcium powder, which can be found in most pet stores. If you're wondering how much to feed a pet snail, keep in mind that they will eat until they're satisfied. You don't have to worry about overfeeding your pet snail. Simply supply several food selections in its food bowl and replace any food that goes bad. A snail will eat roughly 10% of its body weight in a single day, which isn't much food when you think about it. Natural meals, not manufactured foods like rice, bread, or pasta, should be fed to snails. They should also avoid sugary items such as candies and cookies. Snails should never be fed salt since it dehydrates their bodies and causes them to perish. Onions and citrusy foods should never be served to snails since they are high in acid. Snails, like other living beings, cannot survive without water. While it's okay to supply a little dish with some shallow water for your pet snail, the majority of the water it requires will come from the food it eats and the surroundings it lives in. Just remember to feed your snail fresh food and keep it in a humid but not too dry habitat.